Hello guys, today we are going to learn a new poem. The title of the poem is Poetry Itself. The author of this poetry is Neftali Ricardo Reyes Basalto. Very long name, but he is very popular in his pen name Pablo Neruda. So Pablo Neruda is a poet from Chile. He is a diplomat and a politician. He wrote in a variety of styles, and his works include surrealist poems, historical epics, political manifestos, and prose autobiography. He often wrote in green ink, which was his personal symbol for desire and hope. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. This is about the author. Actually, this poetry tells about the birth of poetry in the writer, in the author's or the poet's mind. The situations before it and after it. That's what it's written. The poetry begins, and it was at that age poetry arrived in search of me. I don't know where it came from winter or a river. I don't know how or when. No, they were not voices, they were not words, nor silence. But from a street I was summoned, from the branches of night, abruptly from the others, among violent fires, or returning alone. There I was without a face, and it touched me. I did not know what to say. My mouth had no way with names. My eyes were blind, and something started in my soul. Fever of forgotten wings, and I made my own way, deciphering that fire, and I wrote my first faint line. Faint, without substance, pure nonsense, pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing. And suddenly I saw the heavens unfastened and open, planets palpitating, plantations shadow perforated, riddled with arrows, fire and flowers, the winding night, the universe. And I, infinitesimal being, drunk with the grey starry void, likeness, image of mystery, felt myself a pure part of the abyss. I wheeled with the stars, my heart broke loose on the wind. So this is the poetry. Actually, this poetry is typically in Pablo Neruda's style. Let's analyze this poetry, let's try to understand what does the poet mean. So there are 4 stanzas in the poetry. The first stanza, it says about the time that or the place where the poetry came into his life. Actually, he says that he does not know. He has no idea. I don't know. That's what he uses. And it was at that age poetry arrived in search of me. At that age, we have no idea in which age, but rather we have an idea that in his youth, I don't know where it came from winter or a river. Actually, winter and river both are having different aspects, but rather here it's having a common resource, a common basis, that both belong for nature. Both are part of nature. So he says, I don't know where it came from, whether it is from nature, I don't know. I don't know how or when. I have no idea from where, how or when the ability of writing poetry came to me. No, they were not voices. What I got is not a voice. They were not words. What I got is not at all a word, nor silence. I cannot identify whether it's a word, it's some sentences or some voices, or whether it is silence. That I have no idea. Whatever it is, from the street I was called, I was summoned. Summon means just call someone forcefully. That is summoned from the branches of night, abruptly, from others, suddenly from others. So actually, he says that he got this quality of writing poetry in an unexpected time. Maybe he might not have an idea to have a creation, to make a poetry or anything like that, any literary creation. But he says that all happened abruptly. All happened suddenly. So that says, he says that from this first stanza we just get a point that there are poets, there are different types of poets. Some are born poets, but some others are becoming poets in passage of time. Some are born poets. ചിലവർ ജന്മനാ തന്നെ പോയറ്റ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കവിതകൾ എഴുതാനുള്ള കഴിവുള്ളവരായിരിക്കും. ചിലവരങ്ങനെയല്ല, കുറേയധികം പുസ്തകങ്ങളൊക്കെ വായിച്ച് ആ ഒരു കഴിവ് ആർജിച്ചെടുക്കുന്നവരാണ്. സോ that's what he says. So he says that he is part of the second category, that it's not having that inborn quality, but passage of time just made him a poet. That's it here. And he says that before what he became now, before becoming a poet, before writing some poetries, he was living alone, that among violent fires. So he was living, his life was among quarrels and confusion, and among violent fires, or returning alone, or walking alone, living alone. There I was without a face. It touched me. So when I was living alone, with no friends, having a lot of confusion and conflicts, and with living with no identity, living with no face. Living with no face, it doesn't mean that a man without face. There will be no one like that. But here it says that, it means that he is living there without having any quality. Maybe if we are living in a society, the people will just start to ask that, what are you doing? What's your job now? How you live? So all these questions will be faced by a person when he becomes a youth, when he reaches in his young stage, or when he becomes a young man. He starts to get this, he starts to face these questions from the society. So here the poet, he might have got these questions in his life. അങ്ങനെയാർക്കും ഇത്തരത്തിലുള്ള ചോദ്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ നേരിടേണ്ടി വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടാകും. So that's why he says that I was living without a face. Oh, it was a message. Okay, so that's it. So he was living in depression or loneliness. So in that time, he just got a touch of a friend, and the touch, who was that person? It's not a person, it's that he says that I got that quality of writing poetry. So that poetry touched me. Actually, the poet considered this poetry as a person, a kind of personification. Here it touched him. We know that poetry cannot touch, but here I did not know what to say. My mouth had no way with names, my eyes were blind, and something started in my soul. So he says that that time when poetry touched, that means when he started writing poetry in the early time, I had nothing to say. I have no idea what is happening to me. I was blind. I have no word in my mouth. I have no eyesight. I have nothing seen in my mind to say others what I am doing. But something, I just get a feeling inside my soul that something is happening to me. Some changes are occurring in my mind. But whether it is a fever, whether it is fever or some forgotten wings, some nameless emotions, what is that? Actually, he says that I cannot identify. He said that he couldn't identify what is happening to me, what changes are occurring to me. ഒരു കവിത എഴുതുക എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു കാര്യം, നമ്മളൊക്കെ കവിത ചിലപ്പോൾ എഴുതിയിട്ടുണ്ടാവും, നിങ്ങൾ എഴുതിയവരാവും. ഒരു വരി എഴുതുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് ഇത്രയധികം മെക്കാനിസം മനസ്സിൽ നടക്കുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ, ഇത്രയധികം തോട്ട്സ്, കൺഫ്യൂഷൻസ്, ഇതൊക്കെ മനസ്സിലുണ്ടാവുന്നുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളത് ഇദ്ദേഹം വളരെ കൃത്യമായിട്ടാണ് ആ പോയട്രിയിലൂടെ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ചിലപ്പോൾ വിചാരിക്കുന്നത് ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ നടന്നിട്ടാണോ ഞാനൊരു വരി എഴുതുന്നത്. പക്ഷേ ദർ വിൽ ബി ആഗണൈസ് ഇൻ അവർ മൈൻഡ്, അല്ലേ? ഈ ഞാൻ എഴുതിയ കവിത മറ്റുള്ളവർക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവും, ഞാൻ എഴുതിയ കവിത നന്നായിരിക്കുമോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ഒരൊറ്റ കവിത എഴുത്തുകൊണ്ട് എൻ്റെ കവിത എഴുതുക എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പരിപാടി അവസാനിക്കുമോ, അല്ലേ? ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ കുറേയധികം ആകുലതകളുണ്ട്. So he says that whether having some nameless emotions, this forgotten wings stands for nameless emotions. Forgotten wings may be some experiences that he had in his life, or thoughts about those experiences, no idea about that. Whatever it is, he says that I made my own way, that his mind understands that this is what happening to me, this is what I experience, is the interest of writing poetry. It's my interest of writing poetry, it's the inspiration that I'm getting to write poetry. So that he just converting, deciphering that interest, that fire into some lines that I wrote. The first line, how is that first line? It is not clear, it's not so good, it is a faint line. Actually, he uses this word faint because he was in a hesitation. He was actually he wrote that line in a hesitation, that it was his first line, the initial line, it was under hesitation, that doubt whether it will be a good one or bad one, whether I can express my feelings through this line. That's all came into his mind. That's why he called this first line as a faint one, a vague one, avektamaya, without substance, pure nonsense, pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing. So he says that he believes that he was a man who knows nothing. So he just belittled himself. So maybe he might had such a life that he is not having any quality. He was living in confusion. He was a man without face. That we saw all these things in the previous stanza. So he says that I am a man of no knowledge. He was a man who knows nothing. So that's what he says, that it's pure nonsense. The first line, whatever I wrote, it may be pure nonsense. And he says that the pure wisdom of someone who knows nothing. So this is the knowledge of one person, that person knows nothing. ഒരു അറിവുമില്ല എന്നുള്ള ആ ഒരു അറിവ്, അതൊക്കെ നമുക്ക് ആ പോയട്രിയിൽ കാണാൻ പറ്റും എന്ന് അദ്ദേഹം തന്നെ പറയും. But when he started his poetry, suddenly I saw the heavens unfastened and open, planets, palpitating plantations, shadow perforated, riddled with arrows, fire and flowers, the winding night, the universe. So he says that when he wrote poetries, whatever closed in front of his eyes, it's all open. He just got knowledge. So he became very happy in that the heaven of knowledge opened for him. So when he started writing poetry, in order to write more poems, he started to read a lot of things. He just started to open his mind and the knowledge, the heaven of knowledge, the world of knowledge opened in front of him. His life was a barren land, a palpitating plantation. At first, his life was just like a barren land, uncultivated land. But later, it happened just like palpitating plantation. Palpitating means once we planted some plants, but later, maybe without care or some water or manure, what happened? All dried and gone. And after some days, after getting rain or proper watering, the plant just shoots again. The plant shoots again. So that's it, the palpitating. മഴ ഒരിക്കലും നട്ടു വളർത്തി പക്ഷേ ഉണങ്ങിപ്പോയി, പിന്നീട് നമ്മൾ പരിപാലിച്ചത് വീണ്ടും വളർന്നു വരിക, അതിനെയാണ് പാൽപിറ്റേറ്റിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. So actually his life was a barren land, no cultivation, nothing. But later when he got this ability, when he realized that I have this ability to write poetries, that the more fresh shoots appeared. Palpitating plantation. Okay, so that's why the poet used that word. And there the shadow perforated, the shadow of the trees just spread everywhere, that the poetry brought himself back to his life. So that it was a barren land, but now everything became fresh and cool, everything became happy. So that's what he says here. Okay, so there we see the mixture of feelings, that fire and flowers all are mixture of feelings. So he says that when he started writing poetry, he just got sadness and flowers. He got happiness and sadness together. That's fire and flowers. So he just feels that he is fully back to his life. Okay, so and I, infinitesimal being, drunk with the great starry void. So now he realizes that after years of writing, I realize that he says that is a very small thing, infinitesimal, very small, is very small in the world of poetry. After writing lots of poetry, he realized that even though I have written poetries, I am a very small thing, very small in the world of big poetry, in the big world of poetry, in the big world of poetry, where he is living with the endless sky of poetry. He is actually intoxicated, that is drunk with the grey starry void. He's intoxicated. It's becoming extremely happy for being in the world of poetry, for being a poet. So he says that he is intoxicated with the endless sky of poetry, and he was now addicted for being traveled through this sky where we can see the stars and the beautiful sky, beautiful colors. So actually he says that his emotions started to fly. Actually he is not flying here, his emotions started to fly through this dark, vast place. Actually here abyss stand for the vast sky, endless sky. So here the poet says that the world of poetry is such a place. It's an endless world where we can have a lot of imagination, a lot of inspiration, and we can just make it into our poetries so that we can have wield with the stars and break loose in the wind. So he says that wield with the stars, actually we cannot travel with the stars, but he says that wheeling with the stars. The wheel means travel, that I am traveling with the stars. So actually he says that he says all these are in an extra exaggeration. He says exaggerating all these things. Actually what we see here is a hyperbole. It's a hyperbole. It's a hyperbole that wheeled with stars, we cannot do that. Traveling with the stars, we cannot do that. But here he uses this in order to show his extremely happy feeling. So that's what we understand about this poetry there. In the beginning he has no idea about what's happening here and what is he. Actually he was living in confusion, chaos, troubles, questions, and he realized that he is a man with no face. But later he says that sometime in his life poetry touched him. But when, where, from where, when, how, no idea. But when he got this ability to write poetry, he says that I became happy. I just started to change. I just got a face. Before that I was a man without face, but now after getting this ability I just became a man with face. The people started to identify me. I just got an identity that I am a good poet. He's not telling that I am a good, but people say that. So he says that after that when I started writing poetry, first line it was somewhat faint, not clear. But when I tried for my ability, when I understood that I have ability, I just tried for it. When I tried for it, everything opened. That the knowledge, then the whole world realized that I am a man with the capability of writing poetry. So the people just started to recognize that this man is having some quality. So now he says that now after writing all these poetries, I'm traveling through the endless happiness, and I can enjoy this happy throughout my life. So that's what it says in this poetry.